This is a convening of the Physical Services meeting. Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Legislator Crowley.
Present.
Legislator Castellano.
Present.
Chairman Elner.
Here. First item of business is approval for a grant application for CREST funding. If Commissioner DeRosa would be so kind as to join us.
Good evening. This is for a CREST grant, which has been made available, $200,000 from Senator Putnam. The county has determined that the county office building is in need of ADA compliant bathrooms. So I would like to ask permission to apply for the $200,000 CREST grant to use for the ADA bathrooms.
Any questions by the committee? Other than
Well, which bathrooms are we talking about here? On which floors or all?
So it would be one on each floor. Exact location.
Separate from what's established.
What's that?
Be separate from what's here already,
So it'll be new bathrooms
New bathrooms.
created
Yeah.
on each floor.
starting on the basement floor and the first floor.
Huh, that's great news.
Any other questions? Okay. I move to approve the grant application. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item we have here is for approval, ratification for more grant funding for NYSERDA Clean Energy. Commissioner Barroso?
So NYSERDA, through the Climate Smart program, has made us eligible for various funding. It was based off of what we've done in the past. We were eligible for several different pots of money. One was $125,000 that we would like to use for windows at the Donald B. Smith campus, buildings 2 and 3, which were not part of the Amoresco replacement program. There is also 2 smaller pots, $10,000 and $5,000, that we'd like to use for electric landscaping equipment purchase.
Any questions by the committee? Other legislators?
I just would like to make a comment. I'd love to see you guys just out of the gate going for it with the Climate Smart grants and getting all that funding. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Separately, the New York Swims, $30,000 has been made available to the county for the Parks Department for lifeguard training program. So that is also included in this resolution.
Thank you. Good work. I move to approve this resolution.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you're gonna have this? Okay, now we're talking about approval to put forth for sale a nominal 10-acre property at 100 Zimmer Road.
That is adjoining the Brewster Yards proposed ball fields. The property owner approached the county executive and asked if they'd be amenable to sale. We reviewed it last month. I presented it. There was a inspection of the property with a value based on it. But that is based off of the lowest value that could be. So that's really based off of whatever the value the legislature places on it.
didn't we discuss last month this consideration and the fact that it was at such a low value that we were going to seek multiple listing for it?
What discussions continued and what was going to take, what I'm going to propose for the resolution is that we put forth for auction with a reserve.
Auction or multiple listing for?
This case, just auction.
Just auction.
Just auction with a reserve, which will be set by the legislature.
Okay.
Are we talking about a sealed bid auction or something that's online similar to the auction that we just had?
Similar to the auction we just had. And unfortunately, Commissioner Lewis is on vacation this week because his office would be the one administering the auction.
This would be conducted as a standalone auction, though. It wouldn't be
Packaged.
included with the foreclosures.
I think that's the best way to get the county the most money. So I agree.
Legislative Council, this resolution will have to be modified in any way, shape, or form in order to go with an auction with a reserve set forth by the legislature.
No, and I just was checking the code. I think we had covered this last time, that because it was a property that was for economic development purposes, that there was the option of a public auction or an MLS.
I thought so too.
Right, and the law department weighed in, saying here that we can, to the highest bidder after public advertisement. So,
Through the chair.
yes.
Conversely, why aren't we looking to list it for MLS rather than auction? If we're really looking.
Originally, because I felt that we were going to get the most dollars for the people of Putnam County by an auction with the reserve as opposed to MLS.
I would tend to disagree with that.
Okay.
Separately, the property itself is surrounded by the Brewster Yards property. I'm not sure anyone else would be
It's
interested.
10 acres though.
Commercially
So
zoned.
you don't know until
Commercially
you
zoned.
try.
But the property is surrounded, so there would need
You
to be.
would have to go
Easement,
through the
yeah.
access road, which has ball fields on both sides. It's a paper road right now, that they own both sides, and we own the end piece. So we'd have to drive through the development.
So this land is, through the chair, is contiguous with the property?
Yes.
Well, in my opinion, through the chair, while it sounds like it's rational because it is contiguous, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a bidder or somebody through MLS that would seek to buy this property, 10 acres, for a viable use as well. I think we're giving the farm away with this price.
Oh, absolutely. There are reserves which we don't necessarily have to give to the public. My understanding will be significantly greater. Aaron?
Has Brewster Yards suggested interest in this property?
Yes.
They were the ones who initially approached the county and asked if we would be willing to sell it.
I don't know if this is legal. You know, obviously, some feel that we want the most money for this property, but I see this as a recreational opportunity considering who it is. And I don't know how the town feels about Brewster Yards, but it's a project that's already, you know, being developed and continues to be developed. They want to. So, I mean, I don't know if there's an agreement that the county can, a stipulation the county could put on the sale for use of these fields, you know, at a lower cost for, you know, different organizations with, maybe the youth bureau wants to use these fields for some events, I don't know. But, you know, if we're selling it at such a low price and that's the concern, and I think it's a great opportunity for recreation and kids, and like we really need this. This is what we need as we see the state of mental health. This is a good thing, and it's good that we're selling it to them, I think. I haven't talked to the town, but if there's some kind of agreement that the county can make with Brewster Yards in the sale, like, you know, when we develop a piece of property in town and you know, the developer has to give a certain percentage of the property to the town for a park. You know, why not create something like that with this?
Currently, the property is undeveloped and not in optimal use for a ball field. They will have to do.
They have to go through the
They'll have
planning
to
board
do
and-
work on getting it up to par
And
for
do
their
we-
use.
Do we
Oh,
know,
oh.
have we
So-
determined how the town feels about this project yet? Is there opposition to it? Is it?
I don't even think it's a project right now that we have a piece of property that the county were discussing if we choose to dispose of it.
They have a pretty extensive website that's planned, you know.
Legislator Nasserino and Legislator Crowley.
Wasn't it stated that the intention of Brewster Yards was to build dormitories on this site?
They mentioned that that could be
And do
something
we
that they
have
wanted to use. But
any
there was-
feedback from the town of Southeast on?
That was just a verbal discussion that they had. There's been nothing, they can't file anything, they don't own the
Well,
property at
obviously
this
so,
point,
but that was the stated intention, is that not correct?
It was.
Okay.
But the town, and they wouldn't go on to the town yet with that.
Is there any mention of a pilot, a second pilot, this is a second property for this, the development?
For the Brewster Yards?
Yes, this is a second property, so it can be considered a second pilot, correct? Like Ace has done, Ace Indico in the past has done separate pilots for their different pieces of Ace Indico?
I don't know, Brewster Yards, I don't think they have a pilot.
I thought they did have a pilot.
I don't believe so.
This project is in my district. The town board has indicated to me that they support the project, but they also support, if Brewster Yards wants to come in and put dormitories, they have to go to the planning board. And the town will have local control over what happens to the property, whether they make a parking lot out of it or not. There are photographs of this property. Currently, it's being used, I believe, to deposit stumps and it looks like there's a lot of trash on the property.
If I could ask Commissioner Fieri to comment on that, please.
Through the chair, they're not our stumps.
It's a dumping ground.
The majority of that has been incinerated. It's gone.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. But it's not an optimal piece of property. It has no frontage on Zimmer Road. It's completely surrounded, as you can see in the maps, by Brewster Yards. I have heard other people indicate interest, that there was other interest in that property, but I still think that an auction is the way to expose the property to the market and get the best bang for the buck.
Which is what we're-
And I'm familiar with the appraisers that did this appraisal. They are qualified beyond most appraisers.
Any other questions of the legislature before I ask go to the public? No? Anyone from the public? Yes, please. Please state your name and your town.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Lynn Eckhart, Town of Southeast. I just have a few quick questions. So how do you arrive, I understand the ledge will set it, but how do you arrive at a reserve?
My intention was to increase it above what the appraisal was by looking at some comps in the area.
Okay. Do you speak with any, do realtors go in? I'm just confused by it. I don't know.
I made a couple of preliminary phone calls, and when I had all my due diligence completed, I was gonna bring it to the rest of the legislators. Because the appraisal on this property is only $290,000, and $290 on, even if it's landlocked, let's call it, for lack of a term, flag lot, seems very, very low for a commercial property.
Okay. And will the property be sold as is?
That is what the intention is.
Okay. And I had mentioned before, and just so you're aware, Mr. Drury might know more about this, I'm not sure whether you would want to do borings, or if it's as is, you're not responsible, just because it's been used for dumping for a long, long time. And I'm not saying there's anything bad there, I don't know. But I know asphalt and other things have been dumped there, and so it's just something to consider, I think. And The town, by the way, so you know, because Nancy asked a good question, we are supposed to have some reduced prices for the schools or others using the field. That's what was negotiated when it went through the planning process. However, nothing was etched in stone, so it wouldn't be a bad thing at all for the county to request this if they end up buying it. And just so you know, as far as the dorms, right now that it wouldn't be an approved use, but they would, as Mr. Yonke pointed out, they would have to go through the planning process, and then it would be determined whatever they want to use it for, if it meets codes and all of that. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Legislative Council just want to double check that this resolution is proper for us to go forward, and we can set the reserve on this.
That's a good question. I don't think we've talked about that before. It certainly says that it's going to be listed at by public auction using the services of an auction house under contract with the county, like all of our other ones. Under the terms of the code, typically the county attorney and finance commissioner have discretion on the procedural and administrative running of the auction in conjunction with the auction house. But if the legislature wanted to set a starting bid, I would suggest that it be put into the resolution.
As opposed to a starting bid looking for a reserve, so it's not published. So I just-
Or establish it, but I don't know if you could establish a reserve. You'd have to do it by resolution, which is going to be
We
public.
don't have that. So we have to table.
Yeah, maybe, I think, what Aaron just said, I think, do we need to table this so we can get that sorted out?
Discussion, isn't it?
Yes?
Would it make more sense at that point, if, I mean, since you're looking for a reserve, to list it on the MLS? You know, and go about it that way as opposed to auction?
Look, I'm open to anything that's going to get the people of Putnam County the most bang for their buck and do this in a relatively fast time frame. I mean, just, if we could put an opening bid on this.
I'm sorry, I don't see a resolution here before us to move forward. Is there?
Number 5.
Yeah, number
Yeah,
5.
approval.
Sure.
Through the legislative council, this, even if we were to move it to,
Oh, it's all in there.
Do you have your cover sheet, Liz? Here it is. To the chair.
got a question.
Yeah, through the chair, just to, legislative clerk pointed out that the last resolve clause talks about how the initial amount, whether you want to call it a reserve or a starting bid, would be set. It says that it's set by the Putnam County executive based on the appraisal and CMA with the advice and recommendation of the legislature. So it gives the authority, it gives the discretion to the county executive to set the price, set the starting price.
This is properties, this is physical, the starting price needs to be set by the legislature if we go down that route. So at this point, I move to table. Do I have a second?
I have a question before I.
No second, you have a question?
I had a question before you.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to do MLS on this, we'd need a whole new resolution, correct?
You could move to amend it. It would only change the
Just
second
the next-
resolved clause to say by MLS, I can give you the exact language from the code, through a licensed broker as opposed to the
The
public
price
auction.
would stay on the same, though, correct?
No, you would need, typically when we do an MLS resolution, the legislature sets the starting price. Or it delegates the responsibility of setting the starting price to the county executive, one or the other.
Okay.
Sure.
I think we have to move quickly on this. Excuse me. But I think an auction would be the proper way of doing it, because it's a unique buyer that would buy it, as opposed to putting on a MLS if it was a property that was being sold. So I think we really should look at the auction, and we should set the first bid.
Okay.
If somebody wants to bid over it, great.
Okay, so Legislative Council, we can modify the second class resolve clause to say that the initial offer property shall herein be determined by the Putnam County Legislature on the appraisal and comparative market analysis, correct? So we can set that.
Sorry, that would be the last resolve clause, not the second.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I would like, so what is the proper procedure in order to do that, so we can get this moving?
We'd make a motion to amend this resolution.
Okay, make a motion to amend that resolution so that the legislature sets the initial offering price.
Yep. How about the legislature approves the county executive's price?
I'm just figuring for the interest of saving time, if
Second
we
that,
just
Joe.
do it ourselves, then
Yeah,
it'll
I think we
get
have
moving.
to, I totally agree, I think we should be the ones that approve the price.
Because when we sell it, we still have the right to accept whatever price was there.
And someone's gonna come forward to us and say, this is what we think the correct price should be, and who's that gonna be? Is it gonna be the Commissioner of Finance, or is it gonna be the county executive through the Commissioner of Finance?
Through the chair, it seems either way, you're going to have,
Fine.
require a second bite at the apple, because unless you put a starting amount in this resolution, a future resolution is either going to have the legislature set the price, or approve the county executive start. So it's unless you're putting a number in here tonight, I think it's coming back as of necessity.
Okay, because I'd like to put a number in here of 400.
I just have a question that I'm not clear on. May I acknowledge? Okay. I'm still not clear on the auction versus an MLS. I think perhaps that an MLS listing would provide more exposure. I don't know. I know is this a paper road going through it? That being said, it's still 10 acres for $290,000. It's a steal that doesn't really box out commercial interests. Could be a warehouse that could go there. So going through a ball field might not have an impact for that purpose or any other purpose. So we're just assuming that it will be. But Joe said that he thought the auction process would be better, and I'd like to know why you feel that way, because what's
I think,
the...
we could put the auction out there, information will get there, just like MLS. I think it's a unique buyer that would want to buy this property.
Not necessarily, though.
I mean,
Not
it's right next to a
necessarily.
ball field. I think we obviously have a buyer that really wants the property, and hopefully we can come to some kind of agreement with them. But if there's anybody else out there, I think they'll show up at the auction, and we'll have a set date as opposed to putting it on MLS.
But do you feel that an auction would provide as much exposure for the marketing value to market
In my
this?
opinion, I think so, but, I'm fine with putting it on MLS. I think an auction would be, set an auction date,
Either
whether it's a
way,
month
I'm
from
just
now.
trying to expedite this in
And I
the
think it would
best
be
way.
expedited by an auction as opposed to going back and forth with MLS for a while.
There.
I think I'd like to go with an auction as well. It gets it off our tax rolls, it gets it to somebody else who is interested. It's going to be a specific type of buyer because it is landlocked, so to speak. It's a paper road. It's going to require a lot of, work on that road as far as drainage and a lot of things through the town. So I would be amenable to an auction.
Okay. And 400 sound good to everybody?
I don't have the qualifications to make that assumption. I think
It would be after the sale that we could possibly put in the sale clause, some kind of in-kind services, like, making amenities for the youth of Putnam County in one way. I mean, I think we should encourage this buyer personally, because it would get kind of messy to have other uses there. Certainly a warehouse wouldn't be great with a ball field. A liquor store business next to a ball field, not so great,
Oh, that wouldn't be.
So I would think we'd want to encourage this buyer, so I'm not so concerned about the price of the property as I am concerned, like, what can we get as far as recreation out of this for the people of Putnam County?
Brewster Yard is recreation.
I don't think we can encumber a property if we're trying to sell it, all right, if we want to get the most money. We have an appraisal, and $290,000 may be a steal if it was on Route 22 of Route 6. I have a lot of faith in the appraisers that did this. I know a little bit about real estate valuation myself. I don't know that it's a steal at that number. If it's worth more than the appraised value at an auction, we're gonna get more than the appraised value. And I would discourage you from pulling a number out of your hat and putting that on to begin the auction at.
So I have had conversations with the Commissioner of Finance about this. With the auction, there are fees that are incurred. So if it was listed at 300, there would probably be about 50,000 fees to the auction house. So just consider that
I
as
thought
well.
it was 7%. When we asked about the last auction, we were told that the number was 7%.
That's probably right. No, I think it's the same. So
About 21,000, if it was for 300.
Because on MLS at 5%,
Yeah.
you'd be looking at, 15,000.
I'm not sure why we met, Commissioner of Finance mentioned around 50, so I don't know if there's also public advertising that we do with that.
So,
How quickly do we have to move on this property? Just, do we have a timetable that has been asked of
I'm
us?
aware of.
Probably been on the rules for a while.
So we have time.
I know the answer to this, but considering what Commissioner Barosa just told us about the commission for the auction house or the MLS listing at 50,000 or more, we can't do a private sale with this?
We can go back to the law department and.
No, through the chair, that I can answer. The code says that when a property is being disposed of for economic development purposes, it shall only be sold by public auction or public notice and bidding or an MLS. So it can't just be a private conveyance. It has to be an opportunity for other people to bid.
And I understand it's for economic development in one respect, but it's also for recreation.
Yeah, but the law department was pretty clear on what came from Conrad through Mike Dean. So whether the legislature chooses to dispose of the property through MLS or to the highest responsible bidder after public advertisement, both are authorized options in this case.
Thank you.
Even if it was considered for recreation, we also obtained this property from the town of Southeast as part of a land swap. So for that purposes, we're not allowed to do a private sale as well.
Legislator Nasarino.
I think we should seek either an auction or an MLS listing to see what the market bears, to see what the interest is. And, it'll just open up our options. We know that they are interested. That's not going to change. So we should try to pursue it. And it is at the discretion of the legislature to consider which direction we're going to go in.
Okay.
Makes sense to me.
Anybody else? So,
I do think you need to make the motion to amend
Yes.
that last resolve.
I move to amend the last resolve clause to indicate that the initial offer amount of property shall herein offer be determined by the Putnam County Legislature based on the appraisal and competitive market analysis. Do I have a second?
I just have to read it again. I'm telling you, Bruce, maybe I'm stumped with the language, but I'm okay, if I could just speak on it, I guess.
Please.
With the way we have it set up right now, but the last sentence should be something to the effect with the advice and approval of the legislature as opposed to recommendation. So that would mean, in my mind, that the legislature would have to approve the price. So that would be
Prior to advertisement.
prior to advertising. So as opposed to recommendation of the legislature, with the advice and approval of the legislature, did that not basically state that whatever price the county executive or the commissioner of finance come up with, we have to approve it before we put it on MLS?
Through the chair, I believe that would accomplish it. That changing recommendation to approval would accomplish that.
Okay.
Isn't this what the county executive, the 290, isn't that what they're advising us to list it for?
That is correct. And I'm
So
sorry,
we-
my
So we're gonna
guts.
send it back and ask them to rework the numbers?
Mhm.
So then I'm confused by, okay.
I misunderstood. Is there a number that the county executive has given us already?
Yes.
Yes, the appraisal was, on this property was 290. The original resolution that the county executive sent forth was that he was able to sell it at the appraised
Well,
number.
considering that, and we need to double check this now, that there will be fees in the amount of 7% at 300,000, that's about 21,000. So I think the amount should be at least 320,000, so we can cover those fees and not lose those fees. So I would make the motion to change that last sentence to the approval, remove recommendation and approval of the legislature. So I'll make the resolution to amend that one line first.
There's no price set yet here.
We haven't approved that one
We haven't
yet.
approved that part yet.
I'm just making
I second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye. So now we have a new resolution with the approval of the legislature. Now, if you want to consider, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of turn here.
Please go
but
ahead.
If you want to consider the price or hold off until maybe audit next week to come up with a correct price. But in my opinion, from the numbers that we have presented to us, and we add 7% in additional fees, we're right at $320,000.
And if we choose to go auction, let's just verify what the fees are
That's fair?
and add them appropriately. Okay. The next agenda item.
So what are we doing?
I'll make a motion to move it to audit, and when it comes to audit, if we can have a solid number that we're gonna go with, and make sure we're clear on what the cost would be, whether we go by auction or by MLS.
Second. Discussion.
I'd also like to have Commissioner Lewis here as well. for that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Now is, okay, Commissioner Lewis isn't here and Mike Dean is not here. The next is a discussion for Lot 5, which was not part of the acceptance of all the auction properties. Okay, it's fairly self-explanatory. There was an error done during the bidding. The prior high bid was 1,500. The next bid went from 1,500 to 160,000. The second low bidder has approached the county, and they are willing to pay $1,500 for this property with the proviso that they are going to merge it into their adjacent property, which means it'll never go back on the tax rolls. Excuse me, it will always remain on the tax rolls. It will never be an orphan property. I'm fully in favor of this. Any discussion by the committee? Yes.
No, that's always the best way to do this. Every time this comes up, it's always the best thing that the adjacent property takes over this property, and it solves the problem going forward into the future, so I'm in total favor of it.
Anybody else? Yes.
I agree. This, it's a contiguous property owner who's bidding on it, and the person who bid the $160,000 meant to bid $1,600. They are not residents of Putnam County. This is good for our books just to get this thing out of our ownership.
And being this has been brought to us by the Commissioner of Finance, who has ministerial control over the auction, I completely agree, this is a great idea. So I would like to make a motion to approve that we can sell lot, designated as Lot 5 for the price of $1,500. Yes, Diane?
Legislative Council, didn't we say we needed a resolution presented to the legislature to
Yes.
approve, that this is really just notifying them of this, right? That was the piece that
Correct.
was missing. There's really nothing to approve right now.
Through the chair, it was unclear to me from Commissioner Lewis's memo whether the second highest bidder has been in fact offered the opportunity to purchase it for his bid, and whether or not he has in fact bid that, and, or whether the bid has been accepted and the Finance Commissioner is asking us to approve the bid. The legislature, as with the past auction items, approves the bid that has been accepted at auction. If the Finance Commissioner and County Attorney are telling us that they are accepting the second highest bid pursuant to the terms of the auction, the rules of the auction and the law, and that's a valid bid, then the legislature could, right now, accept the bid, and what doesn't have a resolution in front of them, but could do it in concept along the same lines as the resolution that you accepted last month, where you accepted all the other bids. But if the offer has not in fact been extended to the second highest bidder, and the Finance Commissioner was looking for some sense of approval from the legislature, well, that has to be done. So I'm not clear where we stand right now.
The offer was made and accepted, that I am aware of.
I spoke with the bidder, and he would definitely like to buy the property at the $1,500.
And also, as his memo says, it's my recommendation to the Chairman of Physical and the rest of the legislature, that lot number 5 be sold to the second highest bidder and adjoining property owner for the amount of $1,500.
Then, if that's your interpretation of it, then I think the legislature could accept the bid, which it is statutorily authorized to do.
Okay, so I move to accept the bid of $1,500. Do I have a second?
To the second highest bidder.
To the second highest bidder.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And to the chair, I just think that now the resolution itself should be requested from finance or from the law department so that it's here for the full.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay. Item 7. Okay, we have a fund transfer. Okay, this is an FYI fund transfer for the Sheriff's Department, jail cleaning, garage, courthouse, and cleaning bid. The amount is in $1,800.
Just enough.
It's an FYI? Okay, that's that. Being that we don't have any other business, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.